Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check the video out. And got a little bit different video for y'all today. We're going to be talking about a couple different things about why it's important to smell a bass, especially early on when you start fishing, when you're a kid preferably, and also about what type of how the human body reacts to actually getting a strike from the bass. So these are two things that I think that are super important for anglers to realize, and most people just don't even give it a second thought. But I'm going to explain to you guys in today's video why those two particular elements are super important in bass fishing and your entire perception of the sport. Also, guys, big thank you out there to everybody that's been subscribing to the channel here lately, and everybody that's been using all my links that I put in the video description. You guys know that if a good way to support the channel is simply using all those links that I put in each video description. And a big thank you from me and my family for everybody that's been taking part of that. We really appreciate that. Okay, guys, there's two things that I want to talk about. This is a little bit of an off-the-wall video, but just try it and you probably can understand what I'm talking about here. The first thing I want to talk about is why it's important to smell a bass, specifically early on when you're little. If there's anything you can do for your kids, if you want to get them to remember something about fishing, next time you catch a bass, have them smell inside of their mouth of a bass, because a bass has the most unique smell that anything that I've ever smelled in my life. There's not any other thing that smells like it. It doesn't matter where you catch them. If you catch them in California or North Carolina or Florida or Missouri, they all smell the same. Completely unique smell. And I did this by accident one time. When I was probably about 9 or 10 years old, I was wading a little creek down by my mom and dad's house, and there was a few bass in there, but there wasn't a lot. And I remember I caught this one bass on a little Rapala minnow. It was the biggest bass I ever caught out of the creek my whole life. It was almost a 4-pound bass at the time. I thought it was the biggest bass in the world. Came out of just a little shallow hole, and I couldn't believe how big this fish was. And I remember smelling this thing. When I got it up there, I was looking at how big it was, and I put my nose inside the fish's mouth and I smelled it when I was about, like I said, 7 or 8 or 9. And guys, today, it's like I'm 62 years old, and every time that I smell a bass, I don't care where I catch it, if I smell a bass 62 years old, it immediately takes me back to that place on Turkey Creek when I was 9 years old. It's like, it's one of the most coolest experiences that I have ever had, because it takes me back to the passion that I first developed for fishing, just from that sense of smell. So once you do that, once you do smell a fish on the inside of it, it'll always be with you from now on. And also, I just think it's one of the things I think about fishing when you catch a fish. I think everybody needs to take a little bit of time to just a few seconds, not like a long time, to just look at that fish and just appreciate catching it before you put it back in the water. I think too many times people see these fish as this inanimate object that is just a thing, and they flop it on the floor and give a fist pump and throw it back in the water. But just that simple act goes a long way. But the next thing I want to talk about, which is sort of the gist of the video more than anything else, is I want to talk about the human body, the response that this human body has to a bass strike. Now, if you haven't taken time to think about this, as far as all the times that you've been fishing, let's say, for example, you go out and fish, and I don't care if you're fishing a plastic worm or a jig or a topwater lure or a crankbait or whatever it may be, with the exception of using forward-facing sonar. I'll talk about that here in a second. There is something that happens within the human body when you feel a strike. Think about that. Think about the last time you were reeling that crankbait along and boom, you felt that strike on it, or you're reeling that spinnerbait along and boom, your line goes slack and you set the hook on it, or you pitch that jig in that bush there and you're working it up like that, and you're working it and the jig falls back down, you see your line twitch like that, and you feel the strike. That is the common thread that bonds everybody's love to fishing, is the strike. The strike is the thing. When we get a strike, there's something that happens within our brain that is addictive. It releases endorphins or something. It's like one of the most powerful drugs in the world. It is so powerful that I have dreams, on a regular basis that wake me up, that I'm setting the hook because I feel a strike in my dream, and I just instinctively set the hook and wake myself up out of a dead sleep. So when you're talking about appreciating fishing, and things that are important in fishing out there, really savor that. I don't care what you got going on in your life. If you got troubles and you got things that are bothering you in your mind, if you go out there and you're throwing that spinnerbait past that stump and you get that strike, for even if it's just for a split second, you forget about everything. And the only thing there is that strike from that fish, because you know what's powerful about a strike, and this is one of the reasons live scope sucks, is that when you get that strike, when you're reeling that spinnerbait past that limb and you get that strike, you have no idea what the hell's there. It's like, it could be 12 inches longer, it could be 12 pounds. It's like, what the heck just hit me there? There is that aspect of the unknown and the mysterious that is the PowerPoint in fishing. And when you throw that forward-facing sonar minnow to a 5-pounder that you're looking at the video screen, it takes all of it away from it. A lot of people, they set the hook even before they feel the strike. It's an insult to the fish. It's an insult to yourself. And I'm embarrassed for people that have transcended and fish like that anymore, because they're missing out on the PowerPoint of fishing, which is actually feeling that strike and reacting to that strike. Everything else melts away. Guys, I fished in the boat with billionaires, with people that are broke and homeless, with people, professional athletes, actors and actresses, and it doesn't matter what background they have in life. When they get that bite, they turn into little kids. They do. I remember I had a chance to fish with this one actress years ago, about 30 years ago, and we were fishing together, and she caught like a 12-inch bass. And it's like, when she got the strike, it's just like she lit up. It's just like, oh my God, what was that? It's a strike. And then, holding this fish and just admiring it, the beauty of it before you put it back in. That is what is important in fish. That is what is important in life. And it's just like a couple times I fished with wounded warriors. I fished with terminally ill children before, and the wounded warriors I fished with that basically couldn't even put themselves in the boat, and the terminally ill kids I had that were in my boat in a wheelchair, when they got that strike from that bass, they didn't remember they were in a wheelchair, or they didn't remember they had some traumatic brain injury from Afghanistan or Iraq. They left that temporarily for a moment, and it was all about that experience of feeling that strike and that anticipation. So don't ever take that for granted, and cherish that, and refine that, and hone that, and nurture that. And that is what makes fishing special. And that's another reason, guys, why I'm so against all this electronic technology bullshit, because that takes it away from that. That robs you from that. And the moment we rob ourselves from that experience that I just told you about, that's when we've diminished fishing to a point of which we should be ashamed and embarrassed for ourselves. So anyway, just a few thoughts there randomly. Hope you guys are well. We'll talk later.